Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I have the pleasure of muddling away through the Raising Excellence podcast, and there is some interesting sounds, but I'm just going to ignore them. Uh, Sorry, I just didn't know where that was coming from for a second. All right, so today we're talking about planning. Don't panic, start planning. We will be talking about planning, how it's helped us, what it's done for us, how we suck at it, and things like that. So, with me today, I have two lovely ladies. We have Willow.
How is everyone today? Well, I guess you can't answer. Well, you can, but we won't get it right away.
And we have Deirdre.
Hello, I'm so happy you're here. I hope we entertain you.
Right, because that's pretty much what we're going to be doing today. The planning experts for our group are missing today. And so they left the three of us, the blind leading the blind, to tell you about planning. Well, there's only one thing I know about planning, and that is if you don't plan for the future, you're going to stagnate, rot away, and die. But what planning is that? Is it the planning after 20 years? Am I planning my future far, far away into something, 80 years from now? Or am I planning what to have for dinner? What kind of planning are we talking about? And which one makes a difference in your lives?
I have the way I approach planning. It's like a strategy. So I go two different ways. It depends what the task is. I either go a backwards plan. If it's something like I'm going on a family holiday, and so I put my due date in and I work back from there. What I'm going to need when, how's it long is it going to take me approximate. I fudge it. I always go over, and then I work forward each week at a time, each day. But if it's like a life goal, I don't know, for some reason I'm not doing it that way. It seems too rigid to do it that way because life, to me, just happens. Like in the moment, it can change instantly. And so I feel like life planning is a little bit more grey.
So it's funny because for me it's the opposite. I like the 20-year plans and I usually meet them and exceed them and I'm good. It might take me a year extra, but you know what? It'll still happen because I had like 10 or 7 years to prepare or whatever. But the planning for the holiday just happens. I'm not prepared and the next minute, boom, my bags are packed and I'm going.
I have the same experience as Deirdre, where I can plan down to the T, like what I'm doing for the day, but I can't plan for like long term. Or on the rare occasion where I can plan long term, I can't plan out for the day. It's like my brain doesn't switch in between the two different. Like it's almost like they're two different kinds of goals.
Yeah, maybe they
I mean,
are.
I guess
Maybe
they
we should be
are.
treating them differently. I don't know. With the 20-year goal, it's something. Well, okay, not 20. Let's see, which one did I succeed at? At 21, I decided I was going to quit smoking cigarettes at 30, and I did. By a week before I was 31, I quit smoking.
That's great.
So, and that was a plan that I was, and then another thing I was planning. I want to be teaching more by the time I'm 80. And I guess I'm starting this podcast now. So I'm, early for that one. And I'm already teaching a little bit, starting. So I think that I'm well on the way for that goal.
Actually, you reminded you reminded me of a goal with the smoking. I did too. I wasn't actually sure if it was a real goal. It was hard to differentiate because I was like, I think I was 16 or 17 when I started smoking. And I was like, well, I'll give it about like 10 years. So by the time I'm 30, and I actually didn't like solidify this goal until I was probably in my 20s when I started dating my husband now,
You're,
who did
you're
not
still
smoke.
in your 20s, though.
Well, yeah, but this was 1920s, like turning 19, turning 20, when I started dating my now husband, because he didn't smoke. So it was kind of strange where he didn't like me smoking, and it was the first time I'd been around someone who was like, "You can do it, but I don't have to like it," and it was really strange for me. So it made me start questioning. And I was like, "Well, I'll give it, 10 years. That sounds about okay." And I actually, without even thinking about it, turned 28 and was like, you know what? I really want to quit smoking cigarettes. It's just not conducive. It doesn't feel good anymore. It doesn't give me what I want. And now I'm constantly coughing up tar and it's awful, but I feel better. So I kind of did that unconsciously. I didn't really feel like it was a plan.
Just so you know, the nicotine after smoking takes years to exit your body. So even 2 years later, I had some evidence that there was still deep in my cells nicotine. So just saying.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's amazing how your body. I never coughed up near as much stuff when I was smoking. It's almost like it was suppressed. But once I stopped smoking, it's like, okay, well, now it's time to get all this crap out. And I'm like, ugh, this is terrible. I thought that it would be like a progressive thing. Like I smoke a cigarette, the next day I cough up the cigarette, No.
I don't think that's how it works. No.
I was a naive 20-year-old.
And now you're a naive 20. And what are you smoking now? You just said you quit smoking.
I quit smoking cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
I still smoke cannabis. It's a really excellent dream suppressant for my lucid dreaming, and also I vape because I still like the nicotine. It still gives me the effect that I need so far, but it's much healthier than the cigarettes that I'm smoking, like the actual tobacco. Eventually, I'd like to get off this too.
I don't know.
But
I think that's a matter of opinion. Vaping has never appealed to me.
well, it depends on the person, and it also depends on if you can find the right company. Because I have a friend, actually, my friend that's over now, she works at a juice company, and they make their own juice local. So it's a little bit different, and I can kind of know what's going into it. And I have a friend who's on the inside, so I can actually get information. But yeah, I found that it's been easier for me to quit, but some people prefer cold turkey. Some people prefer different methods. And I say anything that gets you to a goal that you want. If you want to stop coughing and feel better and a vape works for you, cool. If going cold turkey works for you, and do that too.
Nice. So, but this talk was supposed to be about planning, you guys. It's not like we could talk about shopping and we could talk about all sorts of things. But we're supposed to be talking about planning.
Well, I think
there's even someone listening to us about planning.
I was talking about how my issues with planning is I will just kind of set a vague goal, and eventually like I will get there, but I don't find myself doing much actual planning when it's long-term goals.
See, but you have to set the goal, because if you don't set the goal, the status quo will take over, and next thing you know, it's 20 years later and you're still like going to work to earn the money, to get the bread, to get the strength.
I get what you're saying. For me, I have so on my whiteboard in front of my computer, I have picture cutouts, like a little, I guess, like I could put like it on a vision board or something. Yeah, and I've got them on my whiteboard, like bordering. And to me, they're to remind me what my goals are. So I can't. Having 4 young kids, it's hard to implement goals. Because there's a lot that I don't do every day because I just am running a house and organizing kids. But those little things remind me that, okay, I at least have to do one thing, or, could I do one thing this week? And yeah, so I guess I do have like a goal in mind for like the next 5 years. But how I get there, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I know, I hope I get there in 5 years. Yeah. Is that better?
Okay, hang on, because, so let me see. I'm just trying to think about what the stuff I read. You're not supposed to worry about how, right? You're just supposed to worry about what, and then take the first smallest step in the direction of your goal, and see where that takes you. And your goal might change along the way too.
I was going to ask, did anyone else do the getting things done exercise?
Yes. It was confronting.
Yeah, mine too. I was not happy with it. I was trying to find if I could go back.
Paper.
I had it, but then I had to reboot my computer, and I'm not really sure. Oops. I'm just, yeah. But I think I was a director. Definitely. That's what it told me I was.
I wonder if I'll have to take it again, because now I have to go back and go through the link.
So are we going to make all our listeners wait for us to take the test again on live air? Is that what's going to happen right now?
It was only a couple of seconds.
It really wasn't that long. Well, somebody's got to entertain the poor people while we do
one
this.
of us wrote mine down.
One of us can talk while the other takes it.
Okay.
All right.
Would you like to hear mine?
Oh, sure.
Okay. All right. So for my level of planning, so where I'm currently at is I am a responder victim. Yeah. I was surprised, and then I'm just like, oh no, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But the good thing is, let's see, so responder victim, I'm not at my optimum level of perspective or control. This is just the results that I'm reading. This isn't my thoughts or anything. This is the answers that it's giving me of my quadrant. I'm experiencing a storm right now, and it may seem challenging to keep my boat afloat, not to mention to see where I'm going. Yeah, I have no idea. I think I've said that before. I kind of feel like I'm in a swamp, and I don't know where, if I'm stepping forward, is that a hole or is it a rock?
But it's only reflecting you today, not reflecting you another, like overall, your lifetime, right?
No, yeah, just currently. This is where I'm at currently. What is it? On the positive side, I am a responder. It is a natural defensive game I must play to stay engaged in a major challenge. I focus on tactful. I'm not saying that right, am I? Tactful. No, tactful.
Tactful or tactical?
It's tactful.
Tactful.
I spelled it wrong. I focus on tactful responsiveness just to achieve short-term stability. On the downside, on my worst days, I feel like a victim driven by the latest and loudest inputs and issues, living in moment to moment, often in crisis mode. As I perform daily tasks, small issues that are overlooked generally turn into crisis over time. So my goals are to know what's on my plate, make basic decisions about my commitments, get a perspective on how to look at my catalog and my commitments to make better decisions. Move from where I am to where I want to be. So that's kind of what my journaling, my 2020 book is, where I put all my exercises and all my journaling notes and everything in. Yeah, I feel like that's really helped a lot.
That's fascinating, because I got the same thing. And I was not happy because I don't know if you noticed, I think it was in the last podcast, I accidentally said a trauma victim, and I corrected myself. I was like, no, the trauma survivor, because I think that's really important to use proper terminology and be like, yes, you were a victim. Yes, you were victimized, but you are a survivor. It's really important. Mm-hmm. So having this thing say that I was a victim, I was like, absolutely not. No, this is wrong. I started like criticizing it. I was like, where is this from? Who's this person? And and then I read through it and I was like, okay, the way it's explaining this, yes, I would use different terminology, but that's okay. Everyone has their own terminology that they want to use. And I realized it was actually pretty correct.
I don't think I like the terminology that they used for me either. It said I was an autocrat.
What is that?
It says captain and commander autocrat. Autocrat is the one that rules. Like I a self-ruling
I would say captain or commander would be a good title for you. I mean, you have that air about you.
So should we change my title from Illuminator to Captain?
Captain Illuminator. No.
Captain Illuminator at your service.
I think a captain can do a lot of things, and one of the best things it can do is illuminate the path and illuminate what's actually going on so that the crew can do what they need to do.
So the Captain Illuminator doesn't have to shine a flashlight into all your dark corners.
Please don't. You will not make friends that way.
See, people say that, but am I really concerned with making friends? I'm not sure that's a priority necessarily. I mean,
I think, so I'm pretty sure this isn't my husband's saying. I'm sure he picked it up from somewhere else. But it was something along the lines of you have to build a bridge of empathy before you can deploy the 18-wheeler of truth across. And that is so true. It doesn't matter. You can come at someone with all the truth that you want, but if they're afraid of it, you're not going to get the point across. So you have to build this bridge of communication and empathy where they understand that you're on their side and you're trying to help them.
Yeah, because people, from what I can see where they're at the moment, is they're just always being told that they're wrong. They're always being told that, no, that's just the wrong decision. Oh, well, that's just shameful. That's just so wrong. Or something like that.
oh yeah, but those people...
That what you're feeling is wrong. That what you're experiencing, everything that's going on is completely illegitimate. You can't trust yourself and you must defer to someone else.
Yeah, but those people
But they're
have
always
no
being
clue.
told that.
See, but the thing is, people are always just talk about themselves. They don't talk about you. So when they're sitting there and saying, you can't do this, what they're actually meaning is, I can't do that. People never mean you can't do this. They just think they do. What they actually mean is, I would never, that would be shameful if I did it. I wouldn't be able to do it. Because everybody has different levels of shame and different knowledge and different morals and different values and different personality and different skills. And only you can actually decide about yourself, because the other person, just by the nature of them, can't really judge you. They can suggest. They can say, hey, it was me. I'd be embarrassed. I wouldn't do it. That's about all that they can do. Not say your behavior is shameful. Which is cool, because sound like, you know, if somebody said, oh, if it was me, I'd be embarrassed to dance on the table or on the bar at a pub. And I'm not embarrassed about that. I could dance on the bar at the pub. You know what I mean? There are different levels. Different levels of what's shameful.
Is that a promise?
Sure.
I've had plenty. I've kind of put those nights behind me, and there was definitely a lot of shame for a lot of years where I'm like, how could I just?
I could do it sober though.
I cannot. I cannot be that person.
I can do anything sober that I can do drunk, because I don't do anything that I would be ashamed of, and I don't drink enough to do anything like that. So if I ever flash somebody, it's because I wanted to.
Well, I wouldn't say that if I were to do that, it's not because, you know, the alcohol made me do it. There was still a part of me that wanted to do it.
Alcohol made me do it
until I got the alcohol.
The drugs made me do it. I didn't do it. I have no responsibility of myself. No.
Wait, how did we get on this conversation? How does this go? This is why we need the men.
I know. That's the second time we've just gone on a reel. We're just like, oh no, there's the reel. Go with it.
Just so our audience knows, this is why we tried to start a podcast, just the three of us, months before we started Crazy Excellence, and it didn't work because we do this entire time, and our audience was like, we don't know how to follow
Our planning meetings
Sorry.
were the most fascinating discussions that lasted for hours, none of which was ever published.
Yeah.
We had the planning and we didn't make actions to do it.
No.
And
the guys give us backbone, they give us framework, they give us the grounding that we need in order to anchor us and stick to the topic and provide some really, really good masculine perspective. I really appreciate the guys. I'm really missing them today.
Me too. I'm missing them too. I hope they see this. We miss you.
I don't know.
Part of me hopes they don't see this, so they don't see how like
discombobulated we get when they're not around.
Yeah, you don't want their ego to go up a little bit too high. Be like, they really need us.
My result for the test said I am the captain and commander. I command you to stick to
my cheeks
whatever's fun and entertaining.
That we can.
I'm laughing so much.
Okay. No, but for real. Don't panic, start planning. Okay, so the reason why we plan. Okay, I don't like the idea of planning because, like jail and all that stuff. I've talked about it in previous podcasts. But I have to plan because if I don't want to live in the same house for 20 years, if I don't want to stay stagnant, if I don't want to have the same office job over and over and over and constantly, like, I personally, and I'm sure that there are many people that love this and enjoy this and they should continue doing that. But I personally found it very unsatisfactory to go to work for 8 hours and then come home and maybe 2 or 3 times a week work on a hobby and that be my life. Like, my hobbies are sweeping. They take up my life. I want to be able to just like jump into a project. I don't know. And it just seemed like I was constantly held back in an office work.
I agree. I'm not an office type person either. Like the idea of having to be like that and in a cubicle, like the pay, I guess, would be okay. But like, I'm not at home. I don't get to be available for my kids. Like, oh my gosh, I've had so many phone calls. I forgot my lunchbox. I forgot my backpack. And if I was or they're sick or something happened and I have to go pick them up or do something. I asked my mom this. I'm like, what would happen if that had to happen? She goes, they'd just stay in sick bay until it was 3 o'clock and you could pick them up. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Or they call your work. Or sometimes they call your work and make you leave work to go get your kid if your kid is really sick. Like in America.
That's if I'm in a job that would allow for that.
I think that the jobs have to allow for that. Like in the Commonwealth countries anyway.
There's certain areas where yes, it's expected, but it also leads to people not hiring single women with children because of that.
Or like somebody would let a man go home to take care of a kid. That's less likely. I mean, they would, but it's less like in Canada. I think they have to either way, whether it's a man or a woman. But as far as an employer is concerned, I think that it'd be easier to negotiate that if you're a woman.
But even the whole idea of being stuck there in a to me it looks really sterile and stagnant environment. I don't know. My mom was in this part of the working environment where it was called, I don't know, a floating desk. And so she'd go to work every day and she'd be in a different area of the office. She wasn't allowed anything on the desk. She had her work laptop and that was it. And it felt very impersonal. Very, this isn't my work. This is just somewhere I'm just sitting today. I don't know.
I never could.
No.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I never could imagine myself in a office job sitting. One, because I knew that I'd fall asleep too easily. I stuck to gas station jobs where I was alone most of the time. I could just do what I wanted when I wanted as long as I got my job done. And customer service jobs, retail, that sucked. To where that was probably the worst one. There was just no freedom to really be yourself. And when I was dealing with PTSD or the beginning symptoms of it, I realized that wasn't really the place for me because I had my supervisor come by and he was like, our corporate office is here. They're going to be walking through the back room. Everyone put a smile on their face. And I was like, you're going to really tell me what to do with my own body? That's not the thing to say to me right now. And a couple weeks later, I actually went back and I was like, this is what I'm dealing with. And this is why I can't be here. But I never planned when people would ask me, like, don't you want to be a manager? I'm like, no, I have no desire to be a manager. I didn't make plans for a lot of years, and that actually is another sign of um, trauma, is an expectation of an early death and not really feeling like planning for the future. So that's also another reason I've had to really work on setting goals and planning.
You're doing really well with
Thank you.
everything. Well, and even, I mean, for everybody, for all of us, these exercises that we've been going through for the last several weeks have really been beneficial to me, at least. I've really enjoyed them.
I think they've been insightful, and even the cases where we haven't really enjoyed them, we've enjoyed some aspect of them. We're like, we enjoyed bitching about it when we get on the podcast, and we're like, oh man, I did really bad this week, and the other person pops in and they're like, so I also did really bad this week. You know, it's kind of nice to be able to fail actually in
together. Let's fail together. Hold my hands.
Because it doesn't really feel like failing. It feels like, oh, we didn't get that level correct. Now we have to do it again.
Yeah, and I kind of like, there's a part of me that wants to go back to the beginning of Tim's course, the self-discovery course, and start over again, and do all the exercises over again, because we were just starting the podcast and we were all confused and we didn't know what we were doing. But sorry, go.
Yeah, I hope we can do it next year. That's why I'm saving them in my diary, so I can go, okay, this is where I was at 2020, and I'll have a new one for next year, and then I can measure them. I'm like, oh no, I am making improvement. It's, you know, it's not like a day. I've got my day-to-day stuff, but no, I am progressively. What did you say? Going towards my goals.
Yeah. See, maybe that is the difference. It's really hard I've noticed a lot of women in my life. It is really hard for us to articulate. I can see the plan. That's a really strange thing. I can see my plans, what I want to do, but it's really hard for me to just be like, okay, well, I want this, this, and this is how I'm going to get there, and this is the first step that I'm going to take. Like, I can't just pop that out of my brain like some of the guys can. And one of the things I'm really good at is recognizing the plans that I've kind of like made steps towards. And part of that is writing in a journal. I know the last couple weeks I've been like, oh, I haven't really done this much. I've not written very much, but in reality, I'm halfway through a journal, which is farther than I've made in a journal since I was ever. I don't think I've ever completed an actual journal. I get about a third of the way through and then I stop.
So that's awesome.
That's great news.
So what made the difference this year? Us?
I think having people who are asking about it. Like, at first it was really weird because setting goals and then talking to people about it, I had to learn when to say, okay, this is still a goal, but it's not something that I want to work on right now. Like my parts book that I've been working on with Deirdre's help, I've kind of put that on hold to work on raising excellence because I'm like, okay, this is what I can focus on now. But it's still okay when people ask me, hey, how's your book coming along? Because I still have a fantasy book that I've been telling people I've been trying to write for the last 4 or 5 years. And people still ask me about that. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't done much with it. I'm sorry.
I'm busy book writing from what I can see, because I help Daniel and I coach him with his progress every week. And we have 2 discussions every week. We have a Zoom meeting and a 20-minute catch up to see how he's going, just to make sure that I keep him on his timeline, because it's a hard process because you're putting so much energy and effort in just writing and developing, and somehow you're also supposed to be expected to keep yourself accountable and live your life. It seems like too much pressure.
So remember last year when I was a smartass about writing books? And I was like, I can write a book in a month because I can write a book in a month for a client.
I wasn't nodding the smartass. I was nodding about the book writing.
Yeah, I can write a book in a month for a client, but I can't write a book for myself. Why? Because I'm freaking scared. Why can I not
Yeah.
finish a book? It's not time, it's not whatever. I think we need to start, because there are so many books I want to write, right? And I know that if I start, as soon as I start first one, but maybe what we should do is, I don't know, what should we do? We can figure out, for example, once a week we can get together and write books for an hour. If we worked on it 1 hour a week, and if several weeks, well, also if we worked on it for 1 hour a week, it may turn out that we end up working in between time, because we have to think about it if we did it together. Or we could just challenge each other to do it every week. What do you think, Willow? How can we turn up the heat under your frying pan?
I think it's one of those things. Most of my inspiration doesn't come from people saying, "Hey, how's that chapter coming along?" or "Where are you?" My inspiration comes from people who have heard me talk about my book, what I'm talking about, and they ask questions like, "Hey, when you were talking about your main character going off on this quest, like, why is she doing that? What's her reasoning behind that?" And then I'm like, that's a good question. Let me spend some time with this character and ask and figure it out. That's how I created my D&D character. The dungeon master, the DM, said, he kept asking me questions. He was like, "What do you want your character to be? What race? What's their backstory?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "Well, okay, what if you're a princess in a very wealthy castle?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. She's an orphan." And I was like, "Where did that come from?" And he was like, "Oh, okay." So then you start asking questions.
Chris wants to know what your book's about.
Which one?
Which one, Chris?
I have a parts guide for my counseling, which hopefully I can hand out for free to my clients. And then I have a fantasy novel.
Chris also says that he's always a thief in D&D. Hey, you know what I noticed? Interesting thing. We always talk about like comments and stuff. And then I went to YouTube. Most of our comments came across on Facebook. So YouTube had no comments. Yet in the video, I'm like, oh, there's a comment. And I was just like, I wonder if that looks weird on some of the platforms, because we restream to so many platforms altogether.
Well, you can just be like, "Hey, there's a comment on Facebook," or "Hey, there's a comment on YouTube."
Oh, well, these comments are coming in on Facebook right now. All of Chris's comments, which I'm not reading. But he still wants to know what your books are about, all of them.
So my fiction, I call it a fantasy libertarian novel. There's all of these novels about, or fiction stories about, overthrowing a corrupt government. And while that's all fine and dandy, they usually replace it with another government. And my idea is to correlate what is going on, what issues people are dealing with these days, what the hot topic is, and find a psychological thread that I can somehow twist that and turn it into a magical version.
So like libertarian Harry Potter?
Yes. Basically.
Nice. What do you think of that, Chris? Well, no, but okay. So this is thing about planning, and we brought up books, and both Willow and I have books left on the sidelines. So what, as a coach, I'm speaking.
What's your book about, Agnieszka?
I have a few books.
What's your favorite?
Which one? Yeah, that you want to complete first.
Maybe the nonfiction.
Is what type of nonfiction?
It's sort of like, let's say it's self-help. It's more like self-awareness, self-discovery kind of book. So maybe self-help is kind of a 90s term, isn't it? So,
well, it is, but I like how you combined it with a fiction novel, because I was immediately thought of this book called
I wasn't.
Same Color as Normal.
But that's a really good idea. But I wasn't. But I have like 7 different books that I have ideas for. And I actually found my notes about a book that was a psychological fiction that dealt with how to deal with certain challenges in life. I don't know. I just keep coming with ideas for books. I write a bunch of notes about them and then I kind of drop it. I don't know. I think it's an obsession or a sickness. Maybe sick, soft in the head a little. Or maybe I'm not the only one who does that.
No, you're not.
the only one. Absolutely not.
That's how my book started, where it was like I just had these little stories, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, this kind of seems like it'd be the same character, and then put it all together. But it wasn't until years later that I was able to put it together. It kind of felt like that, where I was like, is this even worth going after? Is this like, it'd be like a half finished project. And that's how the book is. I have a little book that I write in, and I write in segments where sometimes it's just like, this character had a dream and this is what the dream was. So I don't know anything else about it, but I just write down, I'm like, that's from this world.
Can I ask you something? So why is it any different because it was like that with the journaling as well. You're in the process of, you're further than what you have with journaling. But when you're doing your artwork, you always seem to complete it. And it's always so, it's either beautiful or it's engaging or it's moving. So why is that different to writing?
I don't know, because that's actually a new thing. Only very recently have I been able to complete more than like one painting a year, because of the same reason. I see things in fragments, and I think this has to do with the fragmented memory process of trauma, where I think I've explained this before. If you have a trauma survivor and they're being interrogated, and you ask them at 12 o'clock, what happened when this began? What happened in the middle of it? What happened afterwards? What did you do after that? They can't do that. All they can say is, I remember the smell of their breath when they were behind me, or I remember the color red. I remember staring at something. They don't know when that happened. They don't know if it was the beginning of it, the end of it. They just kind of, there's fragments of memories, and that's how a lot of my writing is. And it's really hard to not it's hard to not self-edit that, because it doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I can't express it, because it doesn't make sense. You can't express something that you don't even fully understand yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. Only recently have I been able to just let go and let the art, like, if I'm seeing a fragment, I put the fragment in there. And if I see another fragment, I put that other fragment somewhere else. And eventually it creates a picture. And if it doesn't look right, I paint over it and I start over. And I don't know what changed that, what flicked that switch to like allow it to flow.
Autonomy.
Maybe.
Raising excellence.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I think a lot of it had to do with autonomy, but and raising excellence, but I don't think it had necessarily to do with the information that we're learning or the exercises. I think a lot of it had to do with the actual connection.
Community.
Of having someone who I can say, this is what all I know, and under these circumstances, can you help me figure out what else may be going on? And you don't see that in other places. It's a weird kind of support system.
I think that autonomy has a really amazing ability to support you no matter how crazy you are. And I think that, well, unless you're self-harming, in which case they probably intervene, but I haven't seen any of that around. But it's like people will love you no matter what. Even if you fail and screw things up, they still like support you, right?
Only if you have the courage to continuously reach out, because here is the biggest issue with trauma survivors. When you go to reach out and you have a bad reaction, it's traumatizing. That itself is re-traumatizing you to say, this was not normal. This isn't something you talk about. So if you reach out to the wrong people, you're going to get negative responses, and that is normal. Keep reaching out. Keep reaching out until you find that person who's like, oh yeah, I can help you. But also at the same time, don't overload that person. Like keep reaching out and finding multiple avenues. Like I found jujitsu, I found friends, I found a D&D group. I found a job that I like a lot more than retail. Doesn't give me panic attacks.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I think
what I noticed. It's just that that ability to, I don't know, constantly try, constantly practice, constantly just giving it a go is uh it's it's so hard to explain. I
it's
even
either,
find it hard to explain.
yeah, that's, I think that is probably one of the most difficult things is you really want to, you're really trying, but it's so difficult to explain what you're experiencing.
So one of our Periscope listeners is asking for an explanation of what D&D is. Willow, do you want to take that?
D&D is a role-playing game. It's a tabletop game. It stands for Dungeons and Dragons, and it's stereotypically played by like nerdy people, and those are kind of my people. I love weird people. And basically you enter this world. It's got its own rules, like magic works a certain way.
It's like a
certain
book. It's like a book that you
It's like
act
a
in.
world. Yeah, it's more of a it's less of a book and more of a world. So people create these worlds. They create the rules in which the world operates, and you get to play any character that you choose in this world. Now you can choose to play a pre-written story by D&D. They have the actual like
All right,
book.
all right, all right. We've answered the question. We don't have to go to the history of when the first book was written.
I wasn't going to.
Yeah, you were.
But then you can also play homebrews, which is what I'm playing. Where my friend actually just made up the world, made up the rules, and we play by D&D, or we play by D&D rules. But we use it for social interaction. It actually helps you create space and be like, in the context of the scenario that we're in the storyline, how is this character supposed to react compared to, like, in comparison to their character backstory, the people they're around. And I've noticed that it really helps with social awkwardness and just getting a gauge and putting on that mask for a little bit and being like, oh, I like this. I like the way this person acts.
I do know that I can't remember where it was at, but I read recently that they did a study about that, and they socially they were showing that they did it on actors, and they when they go to acting class and they get dressed up, and drama class and everything, they have socially more secure, and they put it down to the play, like that playness of what do little children do? They play mums and dads and
well, I think that's
they
all
try on
actually
roles.
all goes down to Jungian psychology and archetypes, right?
Yeah. You try out all the different roles. Anything you've seen in your life, you kind of just wear it as clothing and then see how it fits, see how you like it, see how you feel in it. And if you like it or you like parts of it, you'll keep it, and the parts you don't like, you get rid of. And eventually you are left with a wardrobe, basically, that you've picked out all yourself. And I try to explain that to people who feel like putting on that mask is hiding, where it's like pretending to be someone else. And yes, you are pretending to be someone else, but if you like it that much, you can make that person you.
But it's also like wearing clothes. You don't have to share your deepest secrets to every single person. You can't put on a loose-fitting shirt if you don't really want to. You know what I mean? And the other thing that I do is I pretend that I'm friends. Like say I'm doing some kind of an accounting thing and I'm having a hard time with it. I think of a friend who's really good at it, and I sort of like try to tune in to them, and that way I feel their support from the inside. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's just like playful childish thing, but it makes me feel like I have better skills because I'm like tuning into this person who's really, really good at this, right?
I use this term where, like, I had just watched a movie with Blake Lively. I love the way she looks. I love her blonde hair. She has this professional but sexy business look. And the next day I went out to dinner and I wore like a really short skirt and a nice dinner jacket, just, really high heels, looked like her. And I say this thing like I'm channeling my inner Blake Lively. Like I'm channeling this inner, if I'm trying to be that person, I'm trying to be like, okay, what does this person embody? And I think that's where you get the phrase like, what would whoever do? Because I think that when I'm trying to do
Brian
something mechanical, when I'm doing something mechanical, I'm like, or logical, I'll be like, what would my husband do? How would my husband think? And I'd almost see my body like go to stand like him, or like I kind of put myself in the position of like, what does this person look like when I imagine them? And it kind of helps.
Yeah,
How does this
absolutely.
relate to planning? We keep doing this.
It does. It totally does.
I know.
It totally relates to planning because we were planning books and now we're planning success. Jungian archetypes are very important. And we did the test. I'm saying that we're right on track. Right on track.
Okay.
True. I guess this is part of the. I guess, I noticed that we all three of us started having the. I'm kind of afraid for whatever reasons, or I'm nervous about this. And I feel like we're kind of at the envisioning step where we're like, okay, I'm actually putting myself in these situations, in the shoes, and I'm looking back. I kind of feel like we're at that spot, and we haven't even made it to like actually taking the first step. But maybe that's just me being pessimistic.
Or it's all good. Well, so what else do we have to say about planning today?
I don't think anything. Maybe we should go to the fallacy of the week.
No, that's for tomorrow.
9 minutes.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So you're jumping the gun way, like 24 hours.
Oh, sorry. I had it all pulled up already. I was like ready to go.
I don't know. You have to wait another 24 hours. Just leave it on the screen.
No.
Come back tomorrow. No.
That's too easy.
I think that we might be just close out this out for today. It's 10:02, so we're almost done anyway. It was supposed to be, see, you're falling asleep, 35 to 45 minutes. And so, you.
I do this all the time. It doesn't matter. I get narcolepsy. I'm constantly sleep deprived.
We're going to close it out till tomorrow. We're going to thank everybody profusely for listening to us and bearing with us on this very chaotic and meandering expanse of talking.
I loved answering all the comments. I really, really enjoy that. I love being asked questions.
Christopher says the glass is half full, Willow. So we'll leave the podcast with that. The glass is half
Not
full.
anymore. I was thirsty.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Kisses from Chris. Kisses from me. Mwah. And I'm sure kisses from the other ladies as well. And we will come back tomorrow.